We are continually adding additional pEAT modules and functionalities. For version 2013B, what you see is when you start pEAT, Project Economic Analysis Tool, are some of these most commonly used modules. For instance, stochastic DCF or discounted cash flow analysis. You've seen that through various videos prior to this. So let me just walk you through some of the other modules, most commonly used modules. We started off with a DCF, so refer to the other videos for a discounted cash flow analysis model. I will now show you a simple project management dynamic cost and schedule analysis. Again, new, open, or exit, or just click on load example. It's always easy to load an example. So what happens is when you load an example, pEAT loads, and you see this tab right here called Project Management, and you can add as many paths as you wish by clicking on Project and add a project. So in this case, we've got a new project. So you can make that project into a sequential path or complex network path. Sequential path just means task 1, task 2, task 3 in sequence. You have to do one after the other. Complex network path is where you can actually go in there and start drawing your own path. So for instance, you can draw and add a task, and in that task you have a subtask, and in the subtask, task 2 links to task 3, but at the same time task 2 can also become task 4 as well, and maybe even splinter off into task 5. So you see parallel paths in this case. So you can move things around as you see fit. And then when you're done, you can add another path, task 6 for instance. And if you want to connect 5 and 6, because you can go through path or task 1, 2, 5 and jump to 6 by bypassing task 3 and 4 if that's the case. Because of parallel development, you select task 5, hold down the control key, so control on your keyboard, and click on task 6. Now you're selecting 2 of these at the same time, and you see this little icon here linking those tasks. So same thing, I can do task 4, control key, task 6, and now I can link them. If I don't like to, I can unlink as I see fit. So I delete a link or add a link in this case. So now I've created a very simple model, and if I'm done with this, all I need to do is create a model, and now there are 6 tasks as linked, and internally in the code, in the software code, all these tasks and costs and schedules and everything else will be based on this model that we've created. So that's just a very simple way of doing a network diagram. Now let me show you a couple of simple network diagrams that were developed. Here's a simple of a complex path 1, 2, 3. You see, you can really go crazy on this if you wanted to. In fact, I can double click on some of these and give it a name. Okay, so task name, for example, whatever the task name is, click OK, and it will put a name down here, so you can very quickly identify the task number and also the name for that task. So you can do the same thing for the different complex paths. And when you're done creating the path, the most critical thing is to decide if it's sequential or complex. Sequential is easy. If it's sequential, you just type in your data. That's all you have to do. Add as many tasks as you wish. Reduce the task. If it's complex path, complex network path, create a path. Click on create model, and you go to the schedule and cost, and now you can actually decide if you want to do a schedule cost based analysis. So here you can give it a task name for different tasks, or just give it T1, T2 to simplify for tasks. A cost, fixed cost, minimum, most likely maximum. If you enter those values in, you're running a simulation in this case, a triangular distribution or normal distribution, or PERT or uniform. PERT is the Project Economic Review tool or technique, and that takes minimum, most likely, and maximum values as well. That's just basics of project management. You can include probabilities of success for each of the tasks. You can turn that off if you don't want to. You can run simulations if you want. If not, you can turn it off. Include budget overruns and buffers, so you may add additional budget overrun assumptions like 3% overrun, 5% overrun, and so forth. So it's entirely up to you what you want to do. When you're done, you've got costs in this case, and you've got schedule. So it's cost schedule analysis on a project management pathway. So min, likely, and max values in terms of schedule weeks, and you can also add in a variable cost per week. So there's fixed cost and there's variable cost. So by putting in variable cost or weekly cost, this could be again daily, weekly, monthly, annually, and so forth. But let's just choose a weekly capability. So what that does is it not only accounts for your fixed cost but also your variable cost, and sums everything up to get your total cost, and at the same time total schedule in terms of number of weeks. You can run simulations. Defaults 1,000 trials. We recommend 1,000 to 10,000. You can put a seed value in that will, if you rerun the model itself with the same inputs and so forth, you will replicate the same answer. So if I use a simple linear path, for instance, with say 11 tasks, 1,000 trials, if I click run in this case, notice that it's doing a Monte Carlo risk simulation, and it just finished the run. And when you're done with it, you can always go to risk simulation and be able to see, for example, simple linear path, cost, and schedule. So you can actually see your schedule, number of weeks, and your costs in this case. So you can do a 5th percentile, 95th percentile as usual. In pEAT, you can do a schedule and you'll be able to figure out, let's say, 2 tails, left tail, whatever you need to, and do a 95% confidence. So 95% of the time you will finish under 38.2 weeks in this case. So if your estimated single point estimate is say 35 weeks, well, what's the probability you will complete before 35 weeks? Only about 38.99, 39% probability you will complete on time, on schedule. So that's probably going to be, a huge risk of about 62% or approximately probability that you will not be able to complete this project on time if your on time happens to be 35 weeks. So you can run the simulation like this for a simple path or in a complex path, for instance. And by the way, when you click run for each of the different paths, you're running only that path itself. So when you go to portfolio analysis, you will only see that path being run. Now, if you want to run all of them, then you go to the portfolio analysis and click on run all projects, and all projects will be run simultaneously. But let me just simplify and show you a complex path 1. So this is the network diagram one more time. And I've got my schedule, my cost, my variable cost, and so forth. Now if I click on run for 1,000 trials, so now it's done. And what you would see now, because this is a complex path, you would see something called project total cost, right, on here, which includes the variable and fixed costs. There's also expected total duration. So on average, what's the expected value of completing this project? 197 weeks in this case. And it will also calculate your critical paths for you. So critical path 1, 3, 8, 10, 13, and 14, will hit 56% of the time. Critical path 1, 3, 6, 9, 11, 14 will hit 29% of the time. So in fact, if you add these two paths off, or those top 2 or 3 paths, you're looking at over 90% probability. So what that means is there's a 90% chance that the project will go through some of these critical paths. So just go through the list, 1, 3, 8, 10, 13, 14, and you can follow on 1, 3, 8, and then you go to 13 and so forth and so on. Just follow the pathways and you'll be able to identify what is your critical path in this case. So very powerful capability for project management.